Hello. Before I go on, welcome to the show. Now OCD proofed. Hello, yes, I agree. It's about time I explained what a straw man is. Generally, the whole point of having a shorthand metaphorical term to describe a logical fallacy is it's supposed to make conversations easier and clearer. But if you're as seasoned as I am, you'll recognise the observation that, 3% of the times straw man is evoked, it is because it is the appropriate diagnosis of a logical fallacy, and the other 97% of the time it's because it's the only logical fallacy you could spell or pronounce. The point at which an idiom is proving to be more of a hindrance than help is surely the point at which we must review it as critically as possible. For the newcomers, I will now do my best to explain what a straw man is, and indeed why we call it a straw man. In short, it is a misrepresentation. Specifically, an avoidable misrepresentation. I call it avoidable because it's very difficult to get away with calling it a willful misrepresentation, since it's near impossible to prove someone's will beyond reasonable doubt in this context. But to allude to the imagery, two noblemen have promised to fight each other. It could be anyone, it could be school children, but we'll go with Knights of the Realm or whatever. Two men, for whatever reason, have promised to fight a duel with each other at a later date at another location. And one of those knights, instead of going through with the duel, hatches a plan to get out of it. He dresses a scarecrow in dueling armour, sticks it in the middle of a field, and assembles a crowd of people at the edge of the field to watch him from a distance fighting a duel with the predictably inautonomous scarecrow. And then when he's beaten the scarecrow and it's lying motionless on the ground, he walks triumphantly over to the people and says, "Behold, I have slain my enemy as promised." And if one chap in the crowd is eagle-eyed enough, he might say, "You didn't slay your enemy at all. You only slayed a straw man." Why, this is a hoax. A straw man hoax. In the context of a verbal debate, rather than a physical altercation, this simply swaps weapon for intellectual position. It swaps sword for words, if you will. Instead of fighting something that the man actually said, you fight against something no one said. You create an imaginary argument that you know you can defeat, and you pretend you beat the actual man or his actual argument. For example, if I were to say something like this, X is misanthropic, this is the original statement being made. This is the standing champion of this particular communique. Will anyone face this good knight in logical combat? And then, as I await a legitimate challenge, some ludicrous fuckrat comes along and says, "Lol, you're saying X isn't misogynistic?" Now, this clearly isn't the argument made. According to any intermediate English speaker, it is contrary to the point being made. It is, to the original argument, what straw is to flesh. But here it is, acting in representation of the point being made. And the smoking gun here, in terms of defining this as a straw man, are these characters here. You are saying, or you're saying. That is the nobleman calling across the field to his audience of peasants and saying, "That's him! This is the guy! This isn't just some random fishmonger I pulled off the street. This is actually the nobleman, whom I am duty-bound to fight to the death. Look! He's dead! He did die. I died at him." This is why we refer to avoidable misrepresentation as a straw man. It has not one key element, but two. It's not just cowardice, the cowardice not to face a battle. It's cowardice cloaked by duplicity. The duplicity not to even admit to your cowardice. But of course, when you translate it from violent battle to the death back down to verbal argument to its conclusion, then cowardice and duplicity get sort of diluted down to basic intellectual dishonesty. In physical reality, this exchange with the dueling knights would scarcely happen outside of farcical cartoon sitcom. No one would fall for it. But in the context of verbal arguments, it happens all the live-long time. And especially in formats which are heavily constrained by a low maximum character limit. Whistle. And you would think, if you explained to these people what a straw man is, and why it's fallacious, you'd think that would make them less likely to do it. You'd think they'd catch themselves doing it now that they understand the ingredients. But no, when you tell a moron what a straw man is, you might as well be saying, here is a magic word. It will win any argument and make you sound intelligent. And guess what's the first thing they do with the word straw man? They use it to commit a straw man fallacy. They say, I didn't say that, when you didn't say they said that. They turn up to an actual duel using a scarecrow as a shield, going, ha ha, you're not hitting me, you're only hitting a straw man. Yeah, you brought it to the fight, dickhead. And at that point, you're fighting against the Black Knight from the Holy Grail. Imagine if the Black Knight had been taught the word straw man. I've cut your arms off. No, you didn't. You only cut off a straw man's arms. No, they're actually your arms. There's blood everywhere. You are no longer carrying a sword. Yes, I am. Stop straw manning me. Look, I've cut your legs off now. No, you haven't. It's just a thresh wound. Okay, so what do we do? Friends, Romans, countrymen, what do we do if the people making strawman fallacies are at this point outnumbered by the people falsely calling everything strawman? The solution is a bigger problem than the problem. Oh yeah, the old woman has swallowed a bird to catch the spider to catch the fly, and it's all downhill from here. So our next course of action, if they are to break free of this spiral, is perhaps to understand what's going on with the bird. Let's look at another example. What you're reading here is not a straw man. I don't even need to give you the context in order to say with 100% accuracy that this is not a straw man. Can anyone tell me why? Can anyone tell me why? You spot it? Yes, it's the words tell me. As I said, the definitive, if you like, classical framing of a straw man argument is, so you're telling me, ... If a rebuttal opens with, so you're telling me, ... and the information that follows is false or misrepresentative, then that is 100% by definition a straw man. Typically, however, the whole phrase is not included. It's simply abbreviated to some portion or variation of it, or the whole thing is dropped and the straw man is conducted entirely using sardonic intonation, as best you can if you're trying to do it in text. I wouldn't recommend it. Unless it's an original opening statement in response to no one in particular. No one in particular is an entity that cannot be misrepresented. But if you were to remove "so you're telling me" from the sentence and replace it with "tell me," then you haven't just changed the sentence, you've changed the sentiment completely. You've changed it from straw man to not straw man. In this case, what you have is a difficult question, or challenge to be exact, that you could ask anyone without misrepresenting anyone. And you would get a broad range of answers. Some say it's not misogynistic, but it is men's fault. Some say it is misogynistic, but it's not men's fault. Some will say neither. Some will say both, and even go on to tell me how, as requested. But here's what a straw crow does. I didn't say that! Notice how that makes no sense as a response to this. This tweet takes us one step ahead in the discussion. This crow takes us 2 steps back. And no, opposites do not attract. We were about to put a pin in something, and then this shrieking narcissist goes, "Blah! You're getting my intentions all wrong, blah!" Nobody's talking about your intentions, you lunatic. Hey, your borderline is showing. Can I say that? Are we doing this? And of course, the phrase, "I didn't say that," means the same as, "You're misrepresenting me." And another way of saying you're misrepresenting me is, of course, straw man. And when they learn this, boy oh boy, do they unlearn everything else. If some women are forced into prostitution, then...
Straw man, I didn't say that!
Does Islam privilege men?
Straw man, I didn't say that, you said another thing!
The what?
Another thing!
Alright, well, from a libertarian perspective...
Straw man, I never said I was a libertarian!
Okay, given that 2 + 2 is 4...
Straw man, I never said 2 + 2 is 5!
Now, of course, to anyone in their right mind, this person has just made a right blue tit of themselves, if you'll pardon the bird pun. But to a nearby murder of like-minded straw crows, this argument is now over, and the crow has won it. The smackdown has been laid and there's no going back. Now this is a straw man, and this is a shrewd and insightful and correct analysis of the situation. Of course, someone might pop in and accidentally say the thing that all the straw crows believe but are trying not to say, and they'll quietly go, "Shut up, that's not what we're doing! We're doing the thing where we indiscriminately call straw man and pretend he has negative emotions. Don't actually answer the question, are you mad?" So, if the next thing this person says is the true statement, "I didn't say you said that," which means the same as you're misrepresenting me, which means the same as straw man, then you will see a fireworks display of exploding crow heads that can be heard for miles around. LOL! How can you say straw man? How can we be the ones straw manning you when we just said you were straw manning us? You've lost your mind! You're having an angry tantrum. It must be that identity you have. You've become too entrenched in an identity and an ideological lens. Can't you see that tell me means the same as you're telling me? Can't you see that 2 + 2 = -4? Hurgle. Why do people keep arguing with the Twitter mob? We're obviously always right. Speaking of identities, you might get a brief contribution from a douchebag identity politician who's learned nothing and continues to cling to the progressive stack, pretending it's a mighty throne of horseshoes. Lol, to say the very least. As you can probably tell by now, straw crows are a bigger problem than straw men. Uneducated people can commit a misrepresentation of a man because they don't know what a straw man fallacy is. But badly educated people, half-assedly educated people, intellectual yet idiotic people, can know what a straw man is, yet still commit a misrepresentation of a representation of a man, as though that's not just another kind of straw creature. They will ruin any chance of a productive conversation, and they will do it with their conscience intact. Because how could I ever commit a straw man? I know what one is. Right, okay. Do you know what a straw crow is? It's someone who sees every man as a straw man whenever they happen to feel like it. And by the way, you can't just say, "Well, what you're doing is just a straw cat to catch the straw bird." That's not going to work, because I'm not talking to anyone in particular. I'm talking to every emergent, self-organizing murder of straw crows out there. They only exist for brief periods, whenever someone commits wrong thing on Twitter and a mob is necessary to shout them down. And know this: mobs are made up of straw men and straw crows, necessarily, feeding off each other in a perfect storm of bullshit, and they dance in a tidally locked binary orbit until there's nothing but a blur, and you can't see the man for the straw. And finally, bonus round to play us out. If you were to say something like this: To claim that any group of men would embrace an ideology that oppresses their women is an astounding claim that requires astounding evidence. And some people will answer the challenge accordingly, either with "here's some evidence that I found astounding," or "I'm afraid I have no evidence at all, whoops, I better not post that, delete, delete, delete." And some people will completely avoid the question, yet pretend they are answering it, when all they did was shit a bunch of straw into the middle of a field, kick it around for a while and say, "Look, I killed a dragon! I properly killed it this time! Man, I must have killed this thing like 5 times. It's the damnedest thing!"